if to Tyler Adams, there is stuff that is going on and has been going on, again, you better scrub that well. Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This show will be talking the U.S. men and women and their Olympic success so far. Canada, well, the hits just keep on coming. Foreign leagues playing real games in the U.S. Tyler Adams' big mouth. Leagues Cup malaise. Corbin Albert. Copa versus Euro style. Road trips, close encounters, and so much more. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this Wednesday, July 31st in the year 2024?
I'm doing well, continuing to enjoy the Olympics. A couple of nights ago, I got caught up watching the equestrian competition, which is taking place in Versailles, which made for a beautiful backdrop.
Yes, you were tweeting or texting me about that. And, you know, it's probably a lot cleaner than swimming in the Seine, right? We just saw that happen today with the triathlons and that kind of stuff going on, and the problems that the the river had cleaning itself up. Also, when we came in, the kids here were watching the 3v3 basketball. I had no idea that this was even a sport. We're getting a little ridiculous right now. What are we going to have, like goalie wars as a new Olympic sport going forward? So I did not know it was a sport. Evidently, it is a sport. And we talked about the break dancing and all that kind of stuff. But to your point, part of the Olympics is being introduced and exposed, and I guess even at times surprised by what actually are Olympic sports. I continue to watch it. My kids, every single time I come down or walk by, they have it on, and they are just kind of discovering a lot of these sports that we're talking about. Have you watched anything else besides Olympic coverage?
I did watch an excellent documentary on Pete Rose. Are you familiar with this guy?
Yeah, I saw that. You have watched it.
Yes.
I haven't pulled it up yet. Good?
Charlie
Hustle,
compelling,
right? Or is that what it is? Or,
not a very sympathetic character, I must say.
Well, that doesn't mean it's not an interesting guy.
Oh, absolutely. Very fascinating, but it was framed as if it was going to be his attempt at redemption, and I didn't feel that way at all because he does not back down from his beliefs, and so he continues to stand firm that it was completely unfair for baseball to ban him and for him to not be in the Hall of Fame. So depending on how you feel on that, this documentary isn't going to change your mind.
Yeah. I mean, the world and the sport has changed dramatically, and it would be interesting to see how it would have been dealt with in today's world and all that kind of stuff. Well, I don't know. Who knows? Let's see. Did I watch anything? I went back and rewatched a classic when it comes to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You ever seen that?
Yes.
Spielberg and all that kind of stuff. It holds up well. Some of the special effects are dated. I kind of think that's to be expected, but it's so much more than the special effects, and there are layers to it. I thought the acting was wonderful. Terry Garr and everybody, and Dreyfuss and all the different people that were in it. It was really it was fun, and I've seen this I don't know how many times, and it never gets old. But it did bring up something. I kind of want your help and our listeners and watchers' help before we start the show here. In a few weeks, I'm going to go on a cross-country trip with my teenage son. I have driven across the country multiple times, and alone and with people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to take him, and we're going to drive back from the East Coast back to Los Angeles. And we're trying to figure out which route to take. And I've done the northern route, I've done the southern route, but I was thinking the Devil's Tower, which features in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think it's in Wyoming, and it's just this incredible rock, and it serves for the kind of the whole background and the front when it comes to this movie. I've never been there, but I'm thinking of going the northern route through the Badlands and Rushmore, and then come down through Grand Canyon and stuff like that. But let me know if you feel that you have a route, either north-south or even traversing back and forth. Probably going to take 7 to 10 days for us to do it, but I'm excited about that. I don't know how excited my teenage son is, but we're going to have some quality time.
This is Henry, who we spent
Yes.
some time with recently.
Yes. So he and I are going to drive back across the country, and we'll let you know how that goes. And we'll be reporting in because I will be doing the show at times from the road, so you will see how it is going. But any type of input out there in terms of where you think we should go within that type of time frame would be appreciated because I've done it, but it was a long time ago. Anything else, my friend?
That's it.
Should we light this candle?
Let's do it.
All right. Where should we start?
We begin with Olympic soccer. The group stage is in the books for both the men and women. The U.S. advanced to the quarterfinals in both. We'll start with the women. Today, they made it 3 wins out of 3 in Group B with a 2-1 win over Australia. Trinity Rodman and Corbin Albert with the goals. The U.S. will face Japan in the quarterfinals Saturday at the Parc des Princes in Paris. And if they move on from that, it would be either Germany or Canada in the semis. That is their path to the Olympic final.
I mean, so far, so good. And we've talked about the fact that Emma Hayes has come in and hasn't missed a beat in terms of the results that she's getting, but also in the changes that she has made. And she, is looking and smelling like a rose right now. And I don't think we would expect anything else from, this type of accomplished coach. But ultimately, we know for any coach in this situation, it is ultimately about winning. And to your point, they have their pathway down. It's been smooth sailing through the group stage. And that's nothing that we haven't expected before when it comes to this women's national team. Let's see. I thought it was, another dominant type of performance. A little scarier there at the end when Australia started to push and got their goal, because Australia needed at the very least a point, I think, in order to go through. So they go home. U.S. doesn't care. And again, they're kind of spreading the wealth because now Rodman got involved. Which is nothing different in the top 3. But then you get a substitution where Corbin Albert comes in, scores another banger. Evidently, that's the types of goals that she scores. So that was fun to see. I'm happy for her. And again, just to reiterate, if you're being an asshole to Corbin Albert right now, you can stop. All right. This is a young woman who certainly I think has grown over the last months, both on and off the field. And she got on the field and did what she needed to do. And I think that plenty of people out there, I hope, can forgive and forget going forward, because I think she's going to be involved with this team for a long time going forward. Where to now, Mosse?
Canada had an eventful day. They lost their appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the 6-point penalty. So it meant they had to beat Colombia to advance. And they did. Vanessa Gilles, who was the hero against France, came up with the winner again today. So Canada advanced with 3 wins out of 3. They finished second in their group. We are going to revisit the spying scandal in the One for the Road, so we don't want to step on that right now. But any thoughts on Canada overcoming all this adversity and still advancing?
I think congratulations are in order to the players. And, we talked earlier this week about the reaction that these players have had, and the understandable reaction. And I think anybody can, even from afar, look and be sympathetic to the situation in terms of them being punished for things that, maybe they had no idea about. And if that's the case, then, you kind of have to take it literally for the team. And yet they overcame a 6-point deduction in terms of the punishment, which they had to deal with, even if they had nothing to do with it. And they put their heads down, and they got the job done, and they got all 3 wins, and they get to go, and they didn't have to wait for a best third place type of situation. They're second place in their group. So congratulations to them. They deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the fortitude, mental and physical, to go through it all. And we saw the players talking about how much it had affected them emotionally, obviously, psychologically and all that kind of stuff. And yet they put that done. And there's a reason why they are the defending gold medal champions. And I think they showed it here. And now, as is always the case, Mosse, once you get out of the group, it's kind of a whole new lease on life and a whole new chapter. And I think that they can put that behind them, at least for now. It's still going to be part of the story going forward, no matter what. And that's just the reality of life. But they can put that behind them and concentrate on going and defending it. And so they got that part down. So congratulations.
They will face Germany and potentially the U.S. in the semis if they both advance. On the other side of the bracket, it's France, Brazil, and Spain, Colombia. Brazil and Colombia ended up being the 2 third-place teams to advance. Can I sneak in a little Brazil rant here?
You can, yeah.
Today, Brazil was trying to get a result against Spain to advance, and they were halfway there. But late in the first half, Marta picked up a straight red card for a karate kick on Olga Carmona.
Yeah.
And she really hurt the team. Brazil ended up losing 2-0 and then had to scoreboard watch. We're fortunate to get the results they needed in other games to advance. Marta now suspended for the quarterfinals against France. Brazil will probably lose that match, so that'll be it for Marta at the international level. She's made it clear this is her last tournament. Keep in mind, Brazil is hosting the next Women's World Cup in 2027, so we'll see if between now and then she changes her mind and maybe wants to play in that World Cup.
They do get through, Brazil. In this case, we're talking about Brazil. They do get through. So there is the possibility, if they were to be able to come up with a massive type of knockout round win, that she could be back. But to your point, it's and this was a dumb play. You know, and at times she is rash in the things that she does, but she has more often than not over the years provided those moments of magic. But there wasn't even a question that this was going to be a red card. Referee saw it immediately, didn't have to worry about VAR or anything like that. And, you know, she tried to decapitate a player who was heading the ball. And it was dangerous, and it was rash, and ultimately it was dumb. And she's lucky it didn't cost her team in that moment.
To circle back to the U.S. women, I skipped this earlier, but they've lined up a pretty sexy friendly for the end of the year. They will face England at Wembley in November. Serena Vigman against Emma Hayes. Emma Hayes obviously facing her native country. England, your reigning European champions and your World Cup runners-up. They are preparing for the next Women's Euros, which is next summer in Switzerland, and we will be covering that tournament. We announced this summer that we are now the new rights holders for the Women's Euros. We're excited about that. The last time these two teams met, it was a friendly at Wembley in October of 2022. We covered it. England won 2-1, but that was under Vlatko Konanovsky. As we've seen, this is a new and improved U.S. women's national team under Emma Hayes, so I'm looking forward to that match.
Yeah, I mean, in normal circumstances, this would be, you know, an interesting and sexy type of matchup because of where these teams are. And, you know, the rise of England, and maybe, I guess, even though we're talking about them having success this summer, but the regression of the U.S. and this rivalry that has happened on the field and off the field in terms of the people that play in the leadership roles and the coaching roles right now. So there's plenty of drama to sink our teeth into. It's still a friendly, and so there will be, you know, how much or little import do you put on something like this. But I'm here for it. I think it'll be a big crowd. We've seen when England play. Now they bring great big crowds, and the return of Emma, and obviously the U.S. is a big draw, so that's going to be fun. And they play another game too, so it'll be 2 games over in Europe, so it's good for the U.S. team.
And that England-USA friendly in 2022 that I referenced, that was 80-something thousand people at Wembley. So to your point, I expect another massive crowd come November of this year. Should be a fun one. I mentioned the Euros next year in Switzerland. We're not sure if we're going to go yet, but I'm sure the digital crew is already researching bars and restaurants in Switzerland because, as we know, they like to have fun
yes,
when
they
we
do.
cover these international events on site.
Yes, they do. We
transition to the U.S. men. They concluded their group stage campaign at the Olympics with a 3-0 win over Guinea and Saint Etienne. Mihailovic with a free kick, and then Kevin Paredes with 2 lovely goals. The U.S. off to the knockout stages of an Olympics for the first time since 2000 when they were led by Landon Donovan. That's before our producer today, Kyla Morris, was born. They will face Morocco Friday at the Parc des Princes in Paris, the same venue where the women will play the following day. The U.S. With a chance to make some noise here at the Olympics.
Okay, you know, I have, over the years, as I have gotten older, I have tried to fight against being a curmudgeon or a grumpy old man or being cynical or negative. And to your point, this is something that we have not seen. Some people have not even been alive since the last time this happened. And so there is an element of celebration. But this is also coming off of, you know, another introspective type of moment and an existential crisis as to what we are as a soccer playing nation and what our national teams are. And so when I look at this, you know, we had talked before the tournament about how this U.S. men's under 23 plus the 3 overage players Olympic team, you take your chances against France, and they did, and they lost to a much better team. and then you should beat the other two teams in your group. So in essence, they have done what is expected of them, given the talent that they have, the pedigree that that talent has. Some playing in the best leagues and the best teams in the world, the opportunities that this generation of players have had from a very young age, the resources, whether it's youth systems and fields and coaches and scouting and all the equipment, all the different things that they have, and as I mentioned, the opponents that they are playing. So Mosse, am I being cynical saying, okay, I'm glad that you're out of the group, but you have really simply done what is expected of you ultimately? And is that being unfair to this group?
No, but we've seen U.S. teams not do what was expected of them. So I think this team at least deserves some credit for handling their business comfortably.
Well, then have we been wrong in expecting it, and so therefore it shouldn't have been expected that this team do this just based on history? I mean,
honestly, they made it easier than I thought it would be. The way they handled both New Zealand and Guinea, I thought was pretty impressive.
I mean, should we have expected the U.S. to come out of the group in the Copa America? The full U.S. national team?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I mean, and I know that they haven't done this in a long time. Would you, or anybody out there that's listening or watching, would you have rathered seen this version of the U.S. men's national team in the Copa America this summer?
Oh, sent the under-23 team to the Copa
just this
America?
term, because we still have the 3 overage players, right? So Mihailovic is kicking ass right now, and Walker Zimmerman, and all these types of players, the Bucios, players that have been in the national team. Are they, in terms of the fight, in terms of the emotion that this has evoked in you, obviously, for getting out of the group and what they've done, would you have rather seen this team?
No. I know the Copa America went the way it went, but your best bet in that tournament was still to send your strongest senior team with the likes of Pulisic, McKennie, and company.
So this team would have done worse.
Well, it's hard to do worse, but I don't know. It's
all right.
Tough to visualize. I mean, it's still a mostly under-23 team going up against older players, so I'm not sure how that would have translated.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, to your point, I think most people listening and watching probably agree. But I do think that those that are watching, and not everybody that watched this summer is watching, and it's not even close in terms of the Olympics, but I do think that people that are watching this and saying, hey, this is nice. This is what we had kind of hoped to feel in Copa America relative to the U.S. team. We got the exact opposite, where they're doing something. And yeah, to my point, yeah, they might be just living up to what we expect of them. But again, it hasn't been done in a while. And again, it's coming on the, right on the heels of an epic failure of the full team in Copa America. And so I'm going to hold off my curmudgeonly type of reaction to this. But I will say, if they go through Morocco in the knockout stage, a team that is going to be playing in Paris, I think it's going to be absolutely the favorite. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly Moroccan in the stands. If they go through that, now you've caught my interest even more.
Back in 2000, the U.S. finished 4th. They lost to Spain in the semis and then lost to Chile in the bronze medal game. They could face Spain in the semis here. If they get past Morocco, it would be either Spain or Japan in the semis. Spain actually lost their last group game to Egypt and finished 2nd in their group, which was a bad break for the U.S. You would have rather Spain on the other side of the bracket. The interesting development is that Morocco ended up topping Group B. They beat Iraq 3-0. Argentina beat Ukraine 2-0. Morocco and Argentina finished level on points, goal difference, and goals scored. It came down to head-to-head. I said to you on that very first day that home Morocco-Argentina Michigas with a goal being disallowed 2 hours later, that could end up impacting the U.S., and it did. It ended up dictating who their quarterfinal opponent is. It's Morocco rather than Argentina. Argentina face host France in Bordeaux. What a match that's going to be.
Oh, my goodness. And that first game, obviously so many ramifications from that. All right, well, so when are these games? What's happening?
All 4 men's quarterfinals are Friday. All 4 women's quarterfinals are Saturday.
Okay. So Morocco, USA, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So 6 a.m. here. We're going to have to get up early to check that out. But that would be fun. And, again, last time you said U.S. had an opportunity to play for a gold medal when it comes to the men was 2000?
Last time they reached the knockout stage of an Olympics was 2000.
2000. I worked that tournament. Myself and Andres Cantor in English. His first time working in English. It was amazing.
I was actually looking at that U.S. roster today. You had Brad Friedel as one of the overage players and Tim Howard. That was quite the 1-2 punch goalkeeper.
Wow.
You had John O'Brien on that team. So obviously Landon Donovan. So some names that 2 years later would factor in the 2002 run to the World Cup quarterfinals.
Okay. Since we won't hear from State of the Union until after these games, who do you have in the who are you picking? Morocco, USA?
USA.
Really? I am too. Japan, Spain.
Spain.
Okay. Egypt, Paraguay.
Don't have a great feel for that one, to be honest. Egypt have had an impressive group stage, so I guess I'll go with them.
Okay. And then France, Argentina. Oof.
That is a tough one. I'll pick France. They're at home. I think they'll get some nice home cooking from an officiating perspective, and that'll be enough.
I'll pick Argentina.
That interesting coaching matchup: Thierry Henry against Javier Mascherano.
That's right. That's right. Now we are in kind of rarefied air when it comes to the men's and women's situation here, right?
Correct. Only 4 nations reached the knockout stage of both the men's and women's Olympic soccer tournaments: the U.S., France, Spain, and Japan.
That's awesome. I saw the U.S. women's national team congratulate and kind of welcome from above, if you will, the U.S. men's team into that rarefied air of going on. Obviously, it's something that the U.S. women's national team do on a consistent basis, but for the U.S. men, as we just mentioned, it's it's fun to be there. And so let's hope that we continue on with both our men's and women's side in the Olympics and have success. All right. Anything else, Mosse?
Yes, one last note. The CONCACAF Under-20 Men's Championship is taking place right now in Mexico. Last night, the U.S. claimed a 1-0 quarterfinal win over Guatemala. Ruben Ramos Jr. with the goal. And by virtue of that result, the U.S. has qualified for the 2025 Under-20 World Cup in Chile. The U.S. will now face Panama in the semis of this tournament. Panama beat Canada in the quarters. 2 more quarterfinal matches today: Mexico, Costa Rica, and Honduras, Cuba, which, believe it or not, is on FS1. That's a game I'm working today. As soon as we're done taping this pod, I got to walk over to a control room and work that game. Christian Miles and Warren Barton on the call.
All right. Well, congratulations to our U20 team, and so these are good. These are positive things, Mosse. But before we finish up this segment, I mentioned Corbin Albert and the trio up top when it comes to the women's national team, and everybody oohing and eyeing and being very excited about this. When it comes to the men's side, you would mention Tessmann and obviously Jordy and these types of players. Anybody else that's really kind of using this as a platform to kind of make their case for potentially moving on to the full national team?
I don't know if they're starting caliber players with the senior team, but I do like Paxton Aronson and Kevin Paredes. I think they could at least be good depth pieces on those wings with the senior team. Paxton, I guess, would be backing up Pulisic, and Paredes would be backing up Timmy Way.
All right. Well, we have a question later on in the show about the potential impact and change of perception that the success of this Olympic team may or may not have going forward. All right, there's a little tease. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some Leagues Cup and some international tours. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back. Let's talk a little Leagues Cup and maybe some transfer window stuff, and then some international tours that are hot and heavy going on right now, Mosse. Leagues Cup, where do you want to start here?
So we're into the second set of group stage matches. We had a slew of games last night, including Pachuca and the Red Bulls playing to a 1-1 draw. Rondon and Elias Manuel with the goals. Pachuca then prevailed on penalties, which means the Red Bulls are out. If we're counting shootout wins as wins, and this is just the second Liga MX over MLS victory in this edition of the tournament. Yeah.
Okay, wow. And again, these are groups of 3, and therefore you obviously only have 2 games. And not a whole lot of room for error. And so the Red Bulls are out before even some other teams are actually into the tournament. So that's an interesting type of situation. But I do like the fact that it goes right to penalties, and you get a point, and then if you win in penalties, you get 2 points. I guess that's how they roll there with that thing. So bye Red Bulls, but to your point, from an MLS perspective, so far it has been, pretty much one way in a positive way.
Yeah, MLS teams continue to take it to Liga MX. Austin picked up a nice win over Monterrey, 2-0. Obrian and Pereira with the goals. Minnesota beat Necaxa. Montreal beat San Luis. There was a very entertaining MLS versus MLS game, LAFC versus Vancouver. Vancouver led 2-0. LAFC rallied for 2 late goals. Bogus with a stoppage time equalizer. Went to penalties. Vancouver did prevail.
Yeah, I was watching it at 2-0 Vancouver, and LAFC had nothing in reply, and then they just came storming back only to lose it on penalties. Austin, by the way, they're flying right now. I don't know if you saw Wolf's kind of dipsy-do and then turn and then play it into space. So there's a lot of great goals, and there's a lot of great exciting types of moments. Now, I will say that the most amazing thing that I saw from a Leagues Cup perspective was the goalkeeper from Minnesota, Dane St. Clair, Canadian goalkeeper. This dude against Necaxa, ultimately they end up winning 1-0, and there was a red card, and they played most of the game down 10 men. This was a goalkeeper standing on his proverbial head. It was amazing, the saves that he made on a consistent basis. And I mean, it's not even man of the match. It's Superman of the match. So the Loons up there, they get the results, and they get it off the back of just one of the most spectacular goalkeeping efforts I have seen in a long time. So that was fun.
Can I just say, I find myself only really interested in MLS versus Liga MX matchups. When it's 2 MLS teams playing each other, I get that with MLS. I don't need it in Leagues Cup. Now, if MLS teams continue to dominate like this, we're going to have a lot of MLS versus MLS matchups in the knockout stages, so I'll have to get over it. But for now, don't you find yourself more drawn to the games that are MLS versus Liga MX?
Yeah, 100%, because it's just a repeat type of situation. Now, they have been exciting, to your point, the LAFC game last night. But yeah, the whole point of this tournament is the unique aspect of having Liga MX teams. So I'm totally there with you. And we ultimately don't know where this tournament is going to lead. Came out gangbusters the first year. Obviously, Messi was involved in this. And it kind of takes on a life of its own as it goes through, because it ends up lasting like a month, because MLS and Liga MX take a month off from their schedules. So what it is right now could be very different a couple weeks from now as other teams come in and different things happen going forward. But yeah, to your point, it's a whole lot more exciting when we have an MLS team playing against a Liga MX team.
Some great games to look forward to this upcoming weekend. Tigres Inter Miami, Philadelphia Cruz Azul, Chivas against the LA Galaxy. So I'm looking forward to Leagues Cup this weekend. Some great games.
All right. Should we move on to some transfer news?
Yes. Last time out, we talked about McKennie and Tessmann possibly going to Fiorentina. Some news on other Americans. A few days ago, there was some Yunus Mosse Lyon smoke, but Fabrizio Romano has since come out and said no, that Yunus is probably staying at AC Milan. One American who is likely departing his current club is Gio Reyna. He is not a part of Dortmund's plans. It's been pretty quiet on that front. The only team I've seen mentioned is Marseille might be interested in him. But again, Fabrizio Romano said nothing concrete. They're just kind of circling and thinking about it.
And Gio's the one that changed agents and went with the big agent and all that kind of stuff, that did the ultimate loan and all that kind of stuff. So his agent better get his in order here.
I agree. That move was supposed to open all these doors for him, and I'm not seeing it so far.
Is this good or bad from Yunus Mosse? I mean, it's good when people, I guess, want you because theoretically they value you, but from a Yunus Mosse perspective, because there's the argument that he has regressed, and would you have liked to see him make a move where he's playing more someplace else?
No, I like him staying at AC Milan, but I think it is slightly damning that a club like Lyon even thought they had a shot, that they looked at Yunus' situation at AC Milan and thought, well, they might be willing to unload him. Now, evidently they're not, so that's a good thing, but it does speak to
Why is it damaging? Is that if you're kicking the tires on something like that, and a guy who's not a regular starter, who has not kind of hit the ground and unlike a Weston or something like that, hasn't really, or certainly a Christian Pulisic.
Well, I'm sure Lyon would love to have Christian Pulisic, but they know not even to ask with him. With Mosse, they thought perhaps there was a chance because they saw how his playing time was inconsistent last season. But looks like he'll stay. One more, Matt Turner. Nottingham Forest went out and signed another goalkeeper this summer, this Brazilian Carlos Miguel. So Turner is now thought to be third string there, so he's got to leave. And there are rumors about a return to MLS.
It's not surprising at all. We know he has gone over, and he went to Arsenal, and he was a backup for Arsenal. And I'm sure he had a wonderful experience and learned a whole lot, but the whole point was, where can he get to where he's actually playing? And if now he's getting knocked down one peg, two pegs, and he's not going to play, that's a problem for Matt Turner. And I do think that there is a question when it comes to whether Matt Turner is going to be able to hold on to that starting position, especially if he's not playing. And whether it's even Jordi Mihailovic or whatever, sometimes it just doesn't go right in Europe. And it might not even be your fault. It just be circumstantial and whatever. It just ends up happening. And so I would think that there are plenty of MLS teams that would like someone like Matt Turner. And if he were to come back, it doesn't mean he's guaranteed to start, but there's a good chance that he's going to be brought in as a starter. And so I think it's kind of a no-brainer. And again, family matters. So we concentrate so much on the soccer, but there's other stuff when it goes on. So that would not surprise me in the least if he is back in MLS.
Next order of business, it's that time of the year when we have all these European club friendlies here in the United States. This past weekend, Arsenal beat Manchester United 2-1 at SoFi. AC Milan beat Manchester City 3-2 at Yankee Stadium. Last night, I watched a little bit of this game, Barcelona, Man City 2-2 in Orlando. Tonight, we've got AC Milan, Real Madrid at Soldier Field, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Philadelphia. This upcoming weekend, Manchester United, Liverpool in Columbia, South Carolina. Do these games excite you? There was a time when Americans look forward to being able to watch the elites of world football play on our shores, even if it was just friendlies. But I don't know, has the U.S. sort of outgrown that as a soccer nation?
I don't know if they've outgrown it because they're still getting big crowds. Has it become diluted a little bit? Because, let's be honest, not just the big super clubs, but pretty much any team out there that wants to, quote unquote, spread their brand recognizes the opportunity that exists and the market that exists. By the way, there's a really good article over on ESPN from our friend Jeff Carlisle about the situation right now with the relevant lawsuit and U.S. Soccer and FIFA. And, just because we're talking about this right now, about, the legal battle to potentially in the future have not just these exhibition games, Mosse, that we're talking about, but actual real games, and how that fundamentally changes the equation for a lot of these global brands that want to expand into the U.S. To your point, now it's not just an exhibition game, and so now the interest level raises, but also from an MLS perspective or any other professional league out there domestically here about that competition and whether that is fair going forward. Anyway, it's a good article, and it gives you the background of where the situation is right now. I recognize the defensiveness when it comes to Don Garber and MLS and others in terms of the encroachment and the potential competition. And this is a little different than the NFL going over to England or Brazil or any place else because the NFL is king, and it doesn't matter what games they play, and baseball for that matter doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt their business, as opposed to a situation where if La Liga or the EPL or the Bundesliga are playing not just games, but meaningful games, competitive games in the U.S., that can be problematic for MLS going forward. But I look at it also from the other way, and I know Jeff mentioned this in his article about this could also force MLS. And again, it's not my money, it's not your money, but we love to tell people how to spend their money. It could also force MLS to keep up, and not just keep up, but to protect their own territory by doing things bigger, bolder than we have ever seen. Because the whole thinking is that when these teams come in any capacity, but certainly if they come in a competitive capacity, that you are paling in comparison in terms of the competition on the field, the talent on the field, the money on the field, and the credibility on the field. All right. So if you're going to keep up, maybe this forces their hand going forward. So we'll see. But I don't think it has been exhausted yet. I still think people are going to pay money. I still think people, even with the knowledge that you're going to see some players that are just young, or maybe won't be involved, or the star players are only going to play a half, or maybe not even at all. They just like the feel. They like the feel of going to it. It gives them, again, this false sense of authenticity and being genuine and and credible and snobby and all that kind of stuff.
I mentioned that AC Milan faced Manchester City at Yankee Stadium. A couple of interesting notes on that game. Before the match, Pep Guardiola came over to talk to Zlatan. And remember, Zlatan hates Pep. He spent years crushing him. And so it was a bit awkward at first. But then Zlatan kind of loosened up, and it looked like they had a friendly exchange. So that was good to see. Zlatan is now a part of the front office at AC Milan.
Yeah, I look at Zlatan in the same way that I look a little bit, he's got a little Trump in him, in that when it really comes down to it, he doesn't, a lot of it is bluster. And while he certainly has had problems, he forgives and forgets and moves on. And I love Zlatan. I did watch that Barcelona Man City thing, and you always wonder how much someone like Pep takes out of a game like that, and how much of it is just run your legs or something like that. I think someone like Pep is obviously thinking about what he sees, and I'm not sure he can turn it off. But these teams are also, they're far away from home. At times they're traveling to go to game to game to game to game. They have sponsor responsibilities and all that. Now, don't get me wrong. They're traveling in first-class kind of accommodations and private jets and all that kind of stuff. But still, sometimes it's maybe not as conducive as coaches would want, or players would want, for that matter.
City, their season begins soon, August 10th, Community Shield against Manchester United. That's a rematch, revenge game for them after they lost to United in the FA Cup. But the other funny note I wanted to bring up about the AC Milan-Manchester City game, did you see this video of Pulisic, Mosse, and Jack Grealish were hanging out with Rihanna, and a little kid came up and asked Rihanna to take a picture of him with the players, and had no idea who Rihanna was, treated her as if she was a fan. Meanwhile, she's the most famous person in that collection of people.
It's good for everybody to be humbled every once in a while, all right? It keeps you grounded. It gives you perspective, whether you're Rihanna or anybody else.
That's correct, right? I'll defer to folks in the control room. Rihanna, definitely more famous globally than anybody I just said, right? Pulisic, Jack Grealish.
Umbrella, right? Under My Umbrella? Doesn't she do the Umbrella song or something like that? Am I asking the wrong person?
You're asking the wrong person.
Oh, for God's sake. All right. I think she does the umbrella thing. Anything else?
No, nothing from the control room on that, so I guess we can move on.
They unplug, basically, when we start, and then every once in a while they come back in and do that kind of stuff. All right, well, we'll get to the bottom of it. At some point, somebody will wake up in the control room and let us know about Rihanna. I'm pretty sure Umbrella. Okay, they're awake. They're awake. Yes, it is Umbrella. Nailed it! All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi and One for the Road. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back. It's time for Ask Alexi and One for the Road coming up right after this. When it comes to Ask Alexi, make sure that you send in your comments, questions, and concerns out there on the social media platforms that we have. And our handle is SOTU with Alexi, or you can call in with your comments, questions, and concerns on our State of the Union podcast hotline, which is 657-549-2297, 657-549-2297. You can use that hashtag AskAlexi out there. Mosse, what do the folks want to know about on today's show?
First up, we have a voicemail. Let's take a listen right now.
Hey, boys. Thank you. It's Mike from Brooklyn. Thank you for the wonderful summer of soccer. I loved it from morning to night. I love both broadcasts. I love the studio. You guys were absolutely fantastic. Fox really outshined the previous competition. Loved what you did. On that note, those are my questions. And especially for you, Alexi, but for both of you, what do you see as the difference between South American soccer and European soccer, and is one better than the other in style? Last but not least, I love you guys. Just wanted to say it's fantastic. Love listening to the pod. Love watching you on TV. I even love following you on Twitter. Alexi, you and I may have different politics, but that's what makes this country so great. You and I could have different thoughts. We could still love each other. We could still sit down and have a beer at a bar one day, and we still love U.S. soccer, and we could still be friends. So keep up the great work. I love following you both.
Oh my goodness! Well, that was incredibly kind and wonderful, Mike. Thank you so much for all the nice things that you said there. Whether it's about the pod, obviously, or me or Mosse, and I echo your sentiments when it comes to the ability to have respectful and civil discourse and agreement and disagreement going forward. So I look forward at some point to sitting down at a bar with you and talking about politics and the world and life and obviously soccer and all that kind of stuff. All right. And thank you for the kind words that you said about our coverage this summer. I think we're all very, very happy and proud of what we did. And, we talk about all the incredible men and women in front of the camera and behind the camera that did so much work to bring both of those tournaments to you. And to your point, the juxtaposition and the compare and contrast that happened, I thought it was fascinating as we went through this summer to see, the different ways people responded to the same game and the same laws that everybody's using in 11v11 and a bunch of people kicking a soccer ball, but in a very different way. And I think it just highlights the fact that while this is the beautiful game and this is the world's game, we all have a different interpretation. And whether it's, individual players, individual teams, individual leagues, individual, in our case, states or regions of the country, individual countries, and individual, confederations when it comes to how to play the game. And we talked a little bit about this, Mosse, and I don't think one is better than the other. It's subjective. I can't tell you what the best form of soccer is any more than I can tell you what the best wine or music or person is. It's whatever touches you and whatever you see. In this case, you're watching a sport that gets you off. And I know that there are people that say, you look at what Copa America brought and the ruthless, raw, physical nature of the way that, and almost recklessness in the way that, many South American players play. That was certainly on display when it came to Copa America. And some find it off-putting. Some find it ugly and dirty and, stop-starty and stuff like that. I actually enjoyed it, and it's almost as if the European game has become so refined, and a lot of it is relative to the facilities and the technology and all of that, and just the evolution of the game. But I liked that. I don't know about you, Mosse, but I liked in the way that Copa America was. It wasn't pretty, in a good way. It was almost like punk, And so the Copa America was punk rock, and the European game was, I don't know, corporate rock. I don't know what you put it in, but much more sheen and much more shine to it in the way that it's played. And I know there's like lots of people, like I said, that watched it. Maybe you, Mike, that think about the opposite. Mosse, what do you think?
Well, I'll just say this is a very touchy subject for South Americans, and the guy that has really stepped into it a couple of times here recently is Kylian Mbappe. Ahead of the 2022 World Cup, he said in an interview that the European clubs were better prepared for that tournament because European football in general is more advanced than South American football. And then obviously Argentina beat France in the final. And the following year, after Uruguay beat Italy in the final of the Under-20 World Cup, which we covered, CONMEBOL put up this billboard celebrating the fact that at that time, the champions at every level were South American. Argentina at the senior level, Brazil was the Olympic champion, Uruguay under-20, and Brazil at that time was the under-17 champion. Now, Germany has since won the under-17 World Cup late last year, so that's no longer the case that South America sweeps all the trophies. But the fact that CONMEBOL went out of their way to champion that, and then ahead of these Euros this summer, Mbappe again said that the Euros are harder to win than the World Cup.
I mean, it's not even hidden underneath. It's actually very overt, is that there is a classism and an elitism. And, when you look at, to Mbappe's point, when it comes to the facilities, the stadiums are different. And even at times the grass is different. And so there is a snobbery that I totally get when it comes to what the European mentality is towards their game. But ultimately, the whistle blows. And part of what I love about international soccer is that they are, these different cultures in the way that they think about the game. And it's on display on the field. And ultimately, there is a winner. And you can ascribe whatever value you want to it. But in this case, the champions of the world come up from a place that you can look down your nose all you want, Killian, or anybody else over there. But ultimately, they won. And, I don't think it's going to change. The interesting thing, and we'll finish it here, Mike, is that, I just talked it from a European standpoint and a South American standpoint. And we talk about CONCACAF things that happen. And so we have kind of developed our own culture there. But when it comes specifically to the U.S., for decades and decades and decades, we've been trying to kind of define what we look like as a soccer playing nation. And we've taken a bunch of twists and turns, and we've tried to be that melting pot type of thing. And I still don't think that we have done it. And so I think it's very hard to put us into one side or the other of either of these, two dynamics that we're talking about, and these two types of styles, if you will, of South America and Europe. And so I guess either we have to make our own, or we have to gravitate over to one side or the other. And that's hard for a country like the U.S. and a culture like the U.S. that incorporates kind of everybody from all over the place. Good call, Mike. Thank you so much.
And thanks for all the praise for our coverage this summer.
Listen, you can call up and scream and yell at us, and we'll use those every once in a while. But
clearly, Mike doesn't work for World Soccer Talk or Awful Announcing.
Oh, wow. Why do you let it get to you, bud? Come on. It's okay.
Next up, we have a question on X. Jacob Stradcutter asks, does the under-23 success help attract better managers for the senior team? Obviously, speaking about the men.
Yeah, so, we've talked so much about this Olympic team. We talked earlier in the show about, how excited a lot of people are. I don't think that this changes the equation whatsoever when it comes to any managers that they are talking to or anybody that would be looking at this as a possibility. I'm talking about coaching the full U.S. men's national team. I don't think that they're saying, "Hey, there's a whole underclass, if you will, of talent that I'm going to have at my disposal." So first off, a lot of the players that we are seeing have already been involved in one way or another when it comes to the national team. They're nothing new, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Just because you're doing it at the Olympic level doesn't always mean that it's going to translate. But I do think that whoever is ultimately the coach, to your point, if I were to ask him or her, would you rather have this Olympic team as the national team or what we saw fail in the Copa America, they're going to say this is the team, and maybe a couple of players here or there, but I don't think it's changing their opinion of what American soccer is or their opinion of where American soccer is going simply by watching this Olympic team do what it hasn't done in a long time.
Another question on X. Soccer Thoughts asks, does it feel like the Liga MX teams are phoning it in this year, Leagues Cup? Do we have too much of a good thing, and should Leagues Cup transition to an every 2-year schedule?
I mean, we just started Leagues Cup, so we kind of have to let it play out, and we have to let it play out, in this case, without a Messi. To your point over there, Soccer Thoughts, yeah, I mean, maybe it's going to be too much of a good thing. And even, the whole concept of having a tournament within a season, that in and of itself is pretty unique. And that might not ultimately last going forward. And you caught lightning in a bottle last year with Messi and ultimately what happened, and kind of coming out of the chute with this new tournament and having it be so successful, a lot because of what Miami was and is, and what Messi is, and certainly was that summer. I don't think it's too much of a good thing. Maybe you look at it every 2 years, but I don't think that Don Garber and MLS is looking at slowing down or, limiting what they have when it comes to the relationships with Liga MX. As a matter of fact, I think it's just going to continue to be ratcheted up. And they are going to continue to do these things to establish that relationship, so much so that it would not surprise me in the least at some point where there is this massive type of league that incorporates Mexico, Canada, and the United States going forward. And we talked about how much Liga MX needs the U.S. market and needs MLS, and how much MLS needs and wants this relationship with Liga MX going forward. So yeah, I don't think it's anything that's going to change it, and I think it will be yet another success this summer ultimately. And I think that they'll continue to do it as long as people are going to it, and people are going to it. We've seen crowds already, notwithstanding, as we talked about earlier this week, the fans that are boycotting it and don't want any part of it. There's still a lot of people that want to see these games.
It is amazing how poorly Liga MX teams are doing, even allowing for the fact that all the games they play are essentially away games. I still would think that they'd win some of these, and I know it's a small sample just last year and then early this edition, but I mean, they have really been terrible. For whatever reason, I don't think they're phoning it in, but for whatever reason, they just haven't taken to Leagues Cup.
And if I was in their shoes, I would kind of look at it as, okay, this is okay, but until we're actually playing games in Mexico, and that's changing the equation, what are we doing here other than making money for people? I would be if I was a Mexican or a Liga MX player, I would be much more cynical about it. So I can understand if that's the case. Anything else from an AskAlexi perspective?
No, it's time now for One for the Road.
You like doing that, don't you? You like calling for it. All right, there's the van. Yep. Oh, my goodness. All right, one for the road here. You know our friend Tyler Adams, right, Mosse?
I do.
Well, the other day, he decided to come out and talk to our friends over there on, what was it, the Cooligans or Yahoo Sports and whatever they got themselves with a website. And obviously, he was asked as the current captain of the U.S. men's national team about the situation right now with Canada and the cheating scandal, the Spygate, the drone gate, if you will, that's going on. And, Tyler, who often likes to talk about things, and to be fair to him, he does it usually in an incredibly interesting and articulate way, and he is a man beyond his age. He decided to talk about it and proceeded to talk about how he had recognized this and that this was kind of part and parcel of the game out there. So much so that he said, quote, "I know for a fact that every team does it." Now, again, this was in the context of what Canada was saying. I scratched my head a little bit saying, now, are you saying that, well, first off, how does Tyler Adams know about everything that every team is doing right now? He doesn't. And I think he'd be the first person to say, all right, what I meant to say was, and it wouldn't be surprised me if at some point he cleans this up. But, he did say it. And he doesn't know what every team is doing. And I guarantee that not every team is doing what Canada did. Now, the act of spying on a training session or on another team, this is certainly nothing new in the world of soccer or the world of sports. And every league and every team and every player has some story about how, somebody was sitting up in the stands or somebody was peering over a fence or something like that. I'm not saying that is right. And in that sense, the act of spying, if you want to call it spying, has been around for decades and decades and decades. But this is a whole nother level when you are talking about drone spying. And I don't think that Tyler Adams necessarily meant that everybody is using drones to spy on other teams. And if he did, that would be a revelation. And that would be a massive, massive problem for all of the teams and for the game going forward. I don't doubt for a second that there aren't other teams out there that have used drones. Okay? But, again, this kind of flip way that he talked about it got a lot of people raising eyebrows saying, well, what is he talking about? I think he will ultimately clean it up. And again, as I said earlier this week, I pray to God that the United States Soccer Federation, in any capacity, men's, women's, youth, whatever it is, has not been involved in doing anything like that. Can they say that it's never happened before? Probably not. But they better have their house in order, because we've seen what this has done to the Canadian Federation and the way that we look at Canada right now. And if, to Tyler Adams, there is stuff that is going on and has been going on, again, you better scrub that well, because that is not a good look. And again, I'm not talking about some guy peering over a fence or something like that. I don't condone that, but we've all kind of been around the game for a while, and everybody's trying to get some sort of edge. Again, I'm not saying that it is right, but I get if that's what he was ultimately talking about, I can understand what he was saying. And again, it was like a flip way of talking about something that is very, very serious right now in terms of cheating. It seems like a small thing, but it does matter. Mosse, anything before we go?
Well, did you see this utterly bizarre twist in the Canada story?
Oh, yeah. Let's get into this real quick.
Email surfaced that Bev Preistman sent to a Canadian Federation HR employee. Evidently, earlier this year, a Canadian scout refused to spy on an opposing team's practice, and Bev Preistman was puzzled by this, so she emailed HR about it. And she said, I don't understand. There's a whole operation on the men's side with regards to it. It can be the difference between winning and losing, and all top 10 teams do it.
Okay. I mean, again, if this is systemic in all of soccer, it's news to me. You know, that people try to get an advantage is not news. That people try to, at times, cheat to get that advantage certainly is not new. But first off, why are you putting it in an email? Okay. And in Bev Preistman's mind, she couldn't understand why someone wouldn't do what they needed to do, and she put it in writing. And look, I do. There's a part of me that does feel bad for Bev Preistman, because this is going to follow her for the rest of her career. Obviously, she's right now, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. She'll probably lose her job. I don't think she's necessarily a bad person. But ultimately, she got caught, and she put it in writing. And so here it is.
It brings to mind the Stringer Bell quote, "You're taking notes on a criminal conspiracy?"
Right, exactly. I mean, seeking your advice and input here regarding this formal email on spying. I mean, this is the quote. So FIFA had her dead to rights, and that's probably why Canada is not appealing any of that stuff, even though they appealed the 6-point thing, but they're through anyway. So that's all going to go away. I hope that this gets nipped in the bud, and I hope that Canada is able to move on. And if Tyler Adams truly does have information regarding the U.S. team or any other team out there doing this, he probably should let people know.
One last note before we leave you. I do find it interesting that the Cooligans got Tyler Adams on and we couldn't get Freddie Adu. And, I came to find out this week that we are still second fiddle for Sean Sullivan. He clearly values Chris Felica's Bear Bets, whatever the hell it's called, podcast above ours. That's what he was busy doing rather than lining up guests for our show.
Listen, you think it's a coincidence that our meteoric rise to the top when it comes to the podcast world out there happened ultimately this summer? You think it's a coincidence? I don't know. We love you, Sean. We love you. All right. With or without Freddie Adu. And we don't need Freddie Adu. But we'd like to have him. It'd be an interesting conversation going forward. As would Tyler Adams if he wants to come on and talking about spying.
Or Rihanna.
Or Rihanna, for that matter. Umbrella, right? We'll give Rihanna the love that she deserves, okay, over a Christian Pulisic or something like that. No problem. We can talk about whatever she wants to talk about going forward. Anything before we go, my friend?
That's it.
All right, continue to download and to review and to subscribe and do all the different things that you do. As I mentioned at the top of the show, if you have any suggestions for me and my son in terms of driving cross country, please let us know that going forward. We will be back after the weekend with a couple new shows, so enjoy all the soccer that's going on, whether it's the Olympics that are going on and whether it's the soccer or any other sport out there, the 3v3 basketball or breakdancing or any other ridiculous thing that now is a sport in the Olympics. Or all the exhibition games that are going on and Leagues Cup and all the stuff that's going on. It's a fun time to be a soccer fan. It's probably a fun time to be a soccer player, and this summer of soccer just kind of continues on. There's always another soccer game, let's be honest. But until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.